2024 Democratic presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his wife and Hollywood actress Cheryl Hines recently joined Russell Brand in conversation about his 2024 campaign. Let's take a listen to some of that.
You need to do that as soon as I get in office. I'm going to issue a series of executive orders and national security orders ordering government agencies and government officials, any federal government employee, to refrain from any kind of participation in any censorship. I'm going to restore the Smith-Mundt Act, which was the act that made it illegal for intelligence agencies or military agencies to propagandize American people. I'm going to bring the big tech titans, the big CEOs, into a meeting in the White House, and I'm going to have an all-day or 2-day or 3-day seminar if we have to figure out how we can do, how they're going to continue to run their sites and to make sure, that things that are not protected speech, like and incitement of violence, those are not protected speech under the First Amendment. Those legally you can censor, or fraud you can censor without it being incursions on the First Amendment or for free speech rights. I'm going to ask them, how do we do this? And the backstop is, if they can't do it, then I would consider making them common carriers, where it's illegal to censor. I don't want to do that. I think it's much better for them to stay in the, as private companies. But they need to recognize the fact that they are now the public square. That is just the reality of our time. If you want to talk to large groups of Americans, you got to do it. Those are the only places you can do it.
All right. So we had some really specific policy proposals for what he would do to address some of these speech concerns if he were president of the United States. He first mentioned the Smith-Mundt Act, which is an act that was passed back in 1945 that prohibits the American government, these intelligence agencies, from broadcasting programs, propaganda programs, basically, to the American public. I'm not sure what he means by bring it back. It doesn't currently prohibit the entirety of the executive branch from distributing information at home, just the State Department and the Broadcasting Board of Governors. So maybe he means expand it in some way. But that was one point. And then the other thing he said was that he's going to have the tech company CEOs come together and ask them about ways that they can manage content moderation in a way that is not censorious, and if they aren't able to come up with solutions, making them common carriers. And I wonder what you think of that.
Right. So the first thing he brought up, I don't know very much about the Smith-Mundt Act, but I absolutely agree with that approach. From my standpoint, the right approach is to constrain the government officials, do the constraining on that end, because that is not going to run into First Amendment problems itself. There's greater license for the government to constrain its own employees. They're public employees. They work for us. They're paid for by our tax dollars, et cetera. We can have policy that impacts them. The policies that impact, right, and RFK Jr. does acknowledge there that they're private companies, so we have to, we call it censorship. And I think you can make a good case that it is censorship when it's motivated by the government. And, you can colloquially call it censorship if you want. But the fact is that it doesn't violate the law when, if Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or any of their, you might hate what they're doing, but it's their platform and they can do it. And you could say there should be a different regulatory regime. You can say all sorts of things, but they do have the right to do it. I don't know about hauling. To my mind, there's already been a lot of hauling tech executives before government, and that has been the problem in the first place, is that almost government has their ear too much. So I appreciate obviously wanting to talk to them about what the problem is, or why they feel so inclined toward these policies, but they have in the past been inclined toward that because government is ordering them around. So we have to be careful not to duplicate the exact same conditions that led to the initial problem. Where I hate that the FBI or CISA or whoever is constantly telling them what to do. So I'm going to tell them what to do even harder in the other direction. And we just need to stop telling them what to do.
Well, I mean, sure. I hear your concern. I really do. But I also think that what he would say is, well, I'm not saying that I would get them in a room to pressure them to do anything at all, but to give them an opportunity to come up with solutions to a problem that people like Elon Musk have said that they too have identified and struggled with. And RFK Jr. has said very glowing things about Elon Musk. I think he used the word hero or some other similar sort of honorific in reference to him. And I think that he seems to believe, I don't share RFK Jr.'s credulity with respect to Elon Musk's ability to handle this problem, but he seems to believe that if given the opportunity to consult with other tech people and really put their brain apply their brain power to the equation, that they can figure out how to do content moderation in a way that is smart and fair, genuinely fair, and perhaps very transparent. But absent that, and here's I think the kind of big news here. Absent that, he says, let's make tech companies common carriers. So treat them like the phone company or, the internet, generally speaking, and say that you have to, the speech standards are that of the public forum, of the sidewalk, that you can't tell people that they have to pay more for a long distance call if you're the Bell telephone company just because you hate their political views. Republicans don't have to pay more for Verizon just because the CEO of Verizon maybe hates Republicans.
I mean, I've heard this idea before. Honestly, I've heard it mostly proposed by Republicans. Maybe Democrats are interested in it too because they're, I guess, kind of defenders of public utilities in general. I don't see how this would ever work. I mean, first of all, I think our very pro First Amendment, allowing corporate speech Supreme Court is just going to shut down any effort to forcibly turn a private company that is a platform and also a producer of content into a public utility. Also, I mean, their business models, it's fundamentally different from the telephone company. I mean, their business models, maybe, and Twitter's moving away from this, but the other companies, they sell ads. They create a curated user environment to sell ads. They're not treating everyone equally on purpose because they're trying to, again, it's a curated experience. It's curated based on what your interests are, based on things you select, based on things they select for you. We argue about the process, and there's a lot of legitimate gripes about it, but it's just fundamentally different. Also, if you make it, if it's truly the public square, in the same sense that the sidewalk is the public square, you can draw swastikas all over the sidewalk. These have been carefully litigated cases. The exceptions for free speech are few and far between.
I think you technically can. There's nothing in Twitter's current policy that bans the posting of swastikas, which is why people had issue with Kanye West
Right,
banning.
but there's a whole lot of behavior that we find abusive and obnoxious that is moderated on social media that's not really partisan or political or objected to.
The parody account issues.
But you couldn't do this in the public square.
Elon Musk said that spamming people under their tweets and calling them cis was hate speech, and that he would ban that on Twitter. Certainly that wouldn't be banned in the public sphere. Can you imagine the draconian world where if you walk down the street and refer to someone as cisgender, you would be censored, rounded up?
People think of the public square as this, they're thinking of a town hall event where somebody gets up on stage and they speak and then they speak, but the public square is where you burn witches. The public square is a raucous cacophony of, again, it's been carefully litigated at the level of the Supreme Court that the Nazis can march through saying Nazi things, the Westboro Baptist Church can protest at military funerals. The most abhorrent, vile speech is protected and should be. The government should not have the right to censor that speech in the public square. But these are private platforms. I think we want them to operate with something approaching free speech, but there's a lot of stuff that you want to allow them the freedom to moderate to make the experience there more enjoyable. And I think if you morph that and force them to have the exact same standards as the sidewalk, a lot of people will be like, oh, wait a minute, that means we can't take action against this, this, and this.
Yeah, it's interesting. We had, these more Wild Wild West social media platforms like 4chan and 8chan and Reddit, where it's more everything goes and there's less moderation. And a lot of normies never really engaged in those platforms because they want their interest in what they want to see very closely aligns with what the advertisers' interests were. There's a reason why the advertisers are drawing the lines where they are, because there is a desire to have a maximalist usage so that they can get more eyeballs on whatever thing that they're trying to sell. And for someone like Elon Musk, who ultimately did buy this company to earn profit or at least recoup his investment, fundamentally, I wonder if that's going to put him at odds with someone like RFK Jr., who he's been very friendly toward up until this point. I mean, RFK Jr. is offering this off-ramp, saying, well, I would love to give you guys an opportunity to figure this out yourselves. But they've obviously been trying to do that this whole time. This whole time. And it seems a little bit, if you look at it in that lens, like a threat. Like, get your act together, or I'm going to make you a common carrier, treat you as a common carrier, and basically strip your ability to do content moderation that would enable you to make money off of this $44 billion investment.
Yeah, we don't want to get rid of content moderation at all. We want to call out biased or unfair or hypocritical content moderation, that sort of thing, or content moderation that is being done, at the behest or the ordering of government forces or something. We want more transparency around it, but you don't want to get rid of it entirely. I think. So if you posted my home address on Twitter, somebody did, some crazy stalker, I would report it. It would get taken down because it violates the policies. I'm pretty sure if somebody was shouting, where I lived, again, in the public square, if it was accompanied by a violent threat or something like, let's go to Robbie's house and kill him at this time, then you could do something. But if you're just telling people where I lived, I don't think you could do anything about that from a First Amendment, free speech, public square perspective.
Right.
So again, there are different standards here. Some, not always for bad reason.
Yeah.
I think we have another clip we wanted to play. Brand also questioning Cheryl Hines, RFK Jr.'s wife, about how her views align with her husband's.
And also, have you sort of managed your answers for how you're going to deal with stuff like, do you agree with Bobby on controversial issues like ending the war, certain medical matters that I won't mention while we're on YouTube? How are you dealing with it, Cheryl?
Well, I like to just take it as it comes. I like to be honest about my feelings and my thoughts, and we really do align on everything. The way the information gets out sometimes is not how I would do it. So that's where it gets a little, I have to take a moment and take it minute by minute, day by day.
Ask her if it's easier being married to me or Larry David.
Which one?
So this is an interesting question. I think a lot of the media, the mainstream media, tends to discredit RFK Jr., have focused on the idea that the normal people in his life don't support him. So they said, well, even your family doesn't agree with you, and has written this op-ed distancing themselves from your vaccine views. And Cheryl Hines, because she is a popular actress and a Californian and someone who is presumed to have the quote-unquote right view of things, has been a part of that effort. She condemned his remarks about vaccines and Anne Frank, I think, that he made during the anti-war protest last year.
In DC.
Exactly. And so there have been these moments where she's distanced themselves from his views. But it does seem here that she says we agree on most things and just characterize that as a difference in approach. What do you make of this?
It sounded to me, she was pretty nonspecific there, and honestly, I understand that.
Yeah.
The political figure's wife, spouse, partner, whatever, doesn't have to offer their own opinions if they don't want to. You don't have to agree with everything your spouse or other family members think. So I'm reading between the lines. It sounded to me like she substantially does agree with him, but maybe, again, I'm guessing based on that response. It's really hard to tell. Maybe she doesn't appreciate some of the venues he's gone to explain those views, or other people he's consorted. Sometimes you can be, maybe she likes the view but doesn't like some of the hyperbole that accompanies it. I don't know.
Here's what she said in a New York Times profile that was published, I think, just last month. She said, I see both sides of the vaccine situation. There's one side that feels scared if they don't get the vaccine, and there's the side that feels scared if they do get the vaccine because they're not sure if the vaccine is safe, and I understand that. So if Bobby is standing up and saying, well, are we sure that they're safe and every vaccine has been tested properly? That doesn't seem too much to ask. That seems like the right question to be asking.
And if he's saying it should be your choice, not the government's choice. That's the thing for me. But anyway, yeah, that's a perfectly benign statement.
Yeah, all right. Well, let us know what you think about this, and more specifically about RFK Jr.'s policy proposals on the question of social media and censorship down below, and we'll have more Rising for you right after this.